Welcome to Make It Happen. On today's episode, we've got Becky Kemp, who's here to talk about the power of words. If you have any thoughts in your mind that you're ready to change and shift, this episode is for you. We're also going to be talking about how to handle the mindset needed to walk into your next holiday party. We have a great Pick My Brain question and a few of my favorite things about raising teenagers. Welcome to Make It Happen. Okay, here are a few of my favorite things. This is the book edition. And we were talking with, later in the show, we're talking with Becky Kemp, who is a mom of 5 boys and has figured out how to raise kids and raise a business at the same time. And so in preparation for that show, I was thinking about some of the things that I have had that have been helpful to me in raising teenagers. So I'm going to share with you a few of my favorite books. There are so many more, and I might do another segment on this, but we're going to start with this series. There are 2 in this series by Kristen Welch, and I really like her. I actually listened to her book on Audible and then also bought the books so I can have them as a resource. But the first one that I recommend for everyone is Raising Grateful Kids in an Entitled World. I absolutely feel like we have to do better as adults about helping our kids feel less entitled. And it's not just our kids. Like, I feel like when I have a neighbor kid run into my home or interact with them in a church circumstance or through work in some way, shape, or form, if I'm speaking to a group of youth, we have to help this generation understand how to be grateful for their circumstances, because gratitude truly fuels attitude, but also helps people feel a lot more motivated and empowered to move forward. I'm not one of those people who feels like, oh my goodness, this generation is so lazy. This generation is just different, and they're motivated by different things. And so we have to help them focus on the things that are going right and help them stay committed and connected to reality in some way, shapes, and forms. So I've been really grateful for this book. She also has this book called Raising World Changers in a Changing World. And this is all about inspiring your kids to be up to good things and to do good things and to help them put their best parts in the world, whether that's service, whether that's growing, building businesses, whether that's just being a kind human. I 100% love and recommend the thoughts that she has in this book. And she talks really a lot about sacrifice and giving and how to help your kids, especially from even a young age, but all the way up into teenagers, about how to be more thoughtful of others and how to give of themselves a little bit more. The last one is one that I've just started. It just barely came out by the time that we're filming this, but I also handed to my son. This is Your New Playlist by Jon Acuff. On this show, I have talked about Jon Acuff before. He has been a guest on this show. I will make sure that that is linked in the show notes so that you can see it. But he wrote this book specifically for teenagers and young adults to help them with mindset. And so this is very similar principles that are talked about in soundtracks, but talked to in a way that will affect teenagers and students and help them grow and thrive. He wrote it with his 2 daughters. I've loved it already. I've dived in. I will admit that I told my son I would pay him if he read it and had a really good conversation with me. He doesn't love reading nonfiction books, but I am committed to changing that for him. And so there are just a few books that will help you. I'll make sure those links are in the show notes to help you consider about the ways that you're influencing not just your kids, but the teenagers and children that you interact with every day. Okay, today's guest is someone I have known for, I was trying to think about that this morning, for probably 5 or 6 years, a long time. I think we first met through the National Speakers Association, and our paths have crossed a few different ways. She's also attended my marketing blueprint before and is one of my current mastermind clients this year in 2022. But today's guest is Becky Kemp, who is a speaker, author of the upcoming book, The Word Effect, and an all-around fantastic human that I feel like is great. She's additionally a life coach and helps professionals and individuals grow and build their mind and help them to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. So Becky, welcome to Make It Happen.
Thank you, Michelle. And yes, I do remember when we met, it was at National Speakers Association. And I think you might have been serving as the chapter president at the time, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah, see, that does send us back a little bit. I always feel sad or bad or survivor guilt that I was the last president who had no effects of a pandemic. Every president after me has had to deal with the challenges that have come since then and varying degrees and levels. But that was a good time back in those days. Those were the good old days.
Yes, they were.
It was completely dependent on live events.
Yes, so true. The good old days. I like that thought.
Okay, well, let's talk about you because I know you've been in this business for a long time, but tell us a little bit about your story because I know that you kind of got here for some personal reasons, and now you're able to take some of your own personal situations and use them to help others. But tell our audience a little bit about how you got started in becoming a life coach and speaker.
Yeah, so I spent the good majority of my time. I'm a mom of 5 boys. And so most of my married life, my profession has been a full-time mom. And I enjoyed that to the most I could, I guess, enjoy it. You know, motherhood can be difficult. But what I found was I wasn't completely pursuing my dreams and passions. I have learned about myself. I can tend to be more of a negative thinker. So I would have dreams, desires, ideas to do things. And then I would let my negative self-talk hold me back, which a lot of us tend to do, I guess, at different times. And about 10 years ago, I found myself, my kids were starting to get older, and I just wasn't feeling quite as fulfilled as I probably wanted to feel. And I realized that since a little girl, I'd always wanted to be a speaker on a stage, and I'd always wanted to write a book, but I had never pursued those things, Michelle. I never took a communications class at college. I went to college, but I never took the things that I was passionate about, probably because of fear that I wouldn't be enough. I never took a creative writing class. I kind of only did things that I knew that I could be successful in or that seemed safe. And so I found myself not really listening to my heart's desire. And I found myself dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression. So on all outside accounts, everything looked pretty normal and happy to me. But on inside, I was struggling mentally and emotionally. And I have always been faith-based. And so I believe in God, but people can take whoever their higher power might be. But about 10 years ago, I was actually praying and the kind of saying, I feel like there's more to my life than what I'm doing. And the thought came to me, change your words and you can change your life. And it was a simple thought. And I didn't really know what that meant, but it put me on this journey. It kind of helped me from spiraling down to turning around and starting to spiral up. So over the last 10 years, I have been on a journey of finding how to change my words will change my story. And in the process, it's put me in the path of becoming a speaker and joining the National Speakers Association, becoming a life coach and getting certified through the Life Coach School, starting an online t-shirt business that puts the power of words on physically called Becoming Threads. So it's kind of taken me on this journey. And then ultimately what it's done is helped me write my first book, The Word Effect, 7 Simple Words to Creating Your Most Beautiful Life, that kind of tells my story and how everybody can just have the simple changes in tweaking little words can actually change your whole story. You don't have to change your circumstance. You just change, the way you look at life. And again, I'm still a mom of 5 boys. I live in the same place. My life has not changed physically, but like I'm living and creating the life I always wanted. So that's what I want to help others do.
I love that. And I also love that when I first met you, you were still doing the t-shirt business. You knew that you needed to do more, but it's also a really great example of an evolution of life and an evolution of who we are and who we're becoming. Because you started down this journey, you started doing it with t-shirts and helping women put on words that would be positive, that would help them focus. My daughter came into my room yesterday and she was wearing the Be Happy sweatshirt that I gave her from you. And that just made me so happy that that was one of the ones she picked. And she's got Jonas Brothers sweatshirts and Nike sweatshirts and other concert sweatshirts, but she just grabbed that one. And I love that she's willing to wear it. And so I also love the good that you've put into the world in other ways too. But it's also like, I remember you saying that this is great, but I want to help people more and I want to do more. I want to have more one-on-one conversations. And now you're doing that. And you have a book that's coming out at the beginning of 2023, which is so amazing. And so I want to really talk about your philosophy on the word effect, because I know we've heard before, hey, what you say matters, how you talk to yourself matters, but I feel like you take it a little bit deeper. Can you share with us the philosophy of the word effect and how we can use it in our everyday lives?
Yeah. And it's been something that has evolved from the t-shirts to then me stepping forward. And what I believe is that each one of us always wants to be either stepping forward. There's the saying, you either are growing or you're going, right? So I think as human beings, we all want to be taking steps forward, becoming a little bit more. And that's what I love about the word becoming, is it's an active word that we're constantly working towards. So the word effect really is that, yes, there's an effect in our lives with words. I believe the words we put on in our minds, the words we read, the words we say to ourselves, the words we say to others, just any word has an effect on our lives. And so as you become more aware to it, you begin to start to look for words. You begin to consciously put on words. So, okay, we live in Utah and we are in the end of October right now. And it snowed yesterday, right? And I was not happy about the snow. But today, when I walk into my closet, I decide I'm going to get dressed appropriately because of the weather. I think about the weather. It's cold. I'm wearing a sweater. I'm going to wear some shoes that cover my toes. I'm going to wear a coat, right? Like, we consciously think about what we put on us. But how often do you think about the words you put on every day, the thoughts that you put on? And as a life coach, that's what I help people see, is that it's our thoughts that drive how we feel. And our feelings are what drive our actions. And a lot of times I used to think it was my circumstances. If this were to change, then I could be happy. If this were different, then I would feel joy. And really, it's an internal job. And so what I invite people to do is to notice and take 10 to 15 minutes every day and consciously put on thoughts that serve them better. Just like we would look out the window and go, oh, it's cold, it's snowy, I'm going to put on clothes appropriately. Like, how do I want to feel today? And then when you decide how you want to feel today, you consciously put on those thoughts. So today I want to feel accomplished. So what is it how do I want to think to get to that result? So it's just simple tweaks, like I said, but a lot of times we get so busy and distracted, we're not thinking about the way the words have an actual effect on us.
Well, and to your point, it's all about being a lot more intentional rather than being reactive to our circumstances. It's saying, hey, how do I want to feel? How do I want to show up? What do I want to portray to the world, despite the craziness that may be going on in my house or outside or whatever? It's being a lot more intentional about how you want to show up and what you want to do.
Yes, it is definitely intentionally living the life that you want to live. And so what I help people do is to create their most beautiful life. And what I find is a lot of people aren't even dreaming or having desires to live their life anymore because they feel like they've tried so many times and failed because they set a goal for themselves and then it doesn't go as planned. And I mean, I'm sure you can have experienced that. I know I have. One of the stories I like to share is just the simple story of having 5 boys. That was not my plan. I get asked all the time, didn't you want a girl? Of course I wanted a girl, but they kept coming out boys. And what was I going to do? And I had to make a choice. Like, I'm going to love the life I'm living, or I can just always regret the things that I can't control. Right. And so that's kind of a simple story, but it's intentionally living a life and designing and creating a life that you want with what you're given. Right. And so I believe that we are made for joy and we can actually feel joy if we choose to.
Yes, I love that. And I feel like, generally speaking, and I'm not saying everyone's like this, I really love to be around high vibe, highly motivated individuals. And I have a lot of friends and I only work with clients that are motivated. And so I really try to surround myself. And yet there are some places that I go and I speak, and I call it the great settlement, but I feel like we have a lot of people who have just settled, right? Life has gotten hard. There are worldly challenges. Everyone has challenges. That's one of the great equalizers that we all have. And I see so many people just parading around, settling for the things that they want, settling for what they have rather than working for the things that they want. And so with your mindset of, hey, what kind of words could I put on that would help me out of feeling like I'm settling or feeling like this is the best it's ever going to get, then you can use your words into powerful action and to help you move forward. So I would love for you to share. I know you have some power words that you love. Will you share a few power words that you feel like people can use in their vocabulary or use in their thoughts to help them shift into a place of action?
Yeah, I would love to. I have 3 words that I'll maybe share. They're simple words because I like a simple approach, because I came from overwhelm and discouraged and kind of that heaviness. And so the thought of changing was like, seemed too much. And so I like the idea of simple words. So the first word that I would invite people to practice putting on is the word and, instead of but, and it's a simple change, but you'll find that a lot of times we'll say, oh, I would like to do that, but and then we tell all the reasons we can't do it, instead of I would like to do this and I'm going to take this step forward. So a few years back, when Becoming Threads was celebrating its 2nd birthday, there was a girl that I invited. She was the girl that did my nails. And I wanted her to come to our birthday party. And we were doing dream boards or becoming boards. And it was just an evening and where we were going to invite people to dream and dream bigger. And that was our theme. And I'll never forget what this lady said to me. She goes, I have stopped dreaming. I don't want to come to that. I don't want to dream anymore. And it's exactly what you're talking about, that like settlement mentality. And I said, why have you stopped dreaming? She goes, because I would dream and they would never happen. And she was always focused on all the buts, all the things that weren't happening right, instead of like, okay, and this unexpected thing happened, but I can focus on it. So just becoming a yes and person and practicing that. Practice all this week saying yes and when you get asked to do this. When I speak to youth groups, I always say this to them. Go home and when your parents ask you to do the dishes, say yes, and what else can I do for you? And of course, they always snicker, right? They're like, I don't want to do that, because normally our common reaction is normally, yes, but I don't want to do anything else. Don't ask me for anything else. But just changing that one word can make a big difference.
Can I have you come speak to my kids?
Yes. Will they listen? No,
sorry.
I give them the ideas, yes, but I can't force anyone to change, right?
I know.
I do try to encourage them, and they laugh about it, but it really does make a difference. When you become more of an and person, life changes and you elevate, you are more intentional, and you actually live a better life. The other word that I would share is I love to talk about the word can. And my husband grew up playing baseball. He's one of 4 boys, and then there was a girl at the bottom of their family, but they all have these memories of their mom sitting in the stands watching them play baseball. And if you're familiar with the game of baseball, one by one, someone has to get up to bat and all eyes are on you, right? And the team out in the field's trying to do whatever they can to keep you up to bat from getting on one of those bases. And everybody knows this is what's going on. Well, my husband and his brothers all have this memory of the stands, and there's lots going on, but they're up to bat and they can hear their mom. They can hear their mom's voice, and the power of her words are, my last name's Kemp. And so she would say to them, say you can, Kemper, say you can. As they were up to bat, she was reminding them that they can, that they've practiced, that they can do this. And that gave them that little bit of confidence. Well, let's say we were sitting at a baseball game and we heard a mom yelling at her kid saying, you can't do this. You suck. And she was saying you can't instead of you can. We would all look at that mom and ask her to leave. We would not be happy about that. But I want you to think of how often we say I can to other people, like you can do it. But when we talk to ourselves, we say I can't, like I can't do that. I could never do that. I am sure you're asked this all the time, Michelle, like, how do you get up in front of people and speak? It's because you've told yourself I can do it and you've learned how to do it, right? It's the same with me. But if we tell ourselves I can't, we're never going to try. So that would be the other simple word, is just practicing putting on can instead of can't. And then the last one I would just offer is how versus why. And when we start asking, I know a lot of times with business or with making a difference, we have to have a really strong why. And I agree with that. But when we start focusing on all the whys of why is this happening and why is that happening, why actually puts our mind looking towards the negative. And when we look at the negative, our brains are wired to then show us more negative. And so I invite people to say, how do I step forward? How do I handle the situation? Instead of why is this happening? How? So for me with my 5 boys, instead of going, why am I a boy mom? And just focusing on that, it's like, how do I be the best boy mom? How do I build a relationship with each of these boys that I love? And when we say how, our brain goes to work to look for solutions instead of obstacles. So those 3 words have made a huge difference in my life. And oftentimes they're a simple approach that people can just start practicing, even being aware to them of the way they talk to themselves, and then just starting to play with them, and see what happens.
Thank you for that. I think those are great words and some good reminders for me too. I try really hard to be an and person. I feel like most of my goals and dreams were made possible because I said the word and. And but I want you to share a little bit, because I listened to you talk about these words and I think everybody needs these words. But I also know that you have some unique gifts and talents to help some specific individuals. So who do you love to help the most? And what kind of audiences do you feel like need these conversations the most as well?
Yeah, I love sharing these messages with anyone that will listen, of course. But the people that I'm really drawn to are someone that's a middle-aged woman that kind of has lived one part of her life and is ready, feels the desire to put more out into the world, whether it's building a business of some kind, developing a talent, working on a relationship of some kind, feeling kind of stuck in their life. I love to empower them that the power of words works for them too. They've got the solutions within them. And so offering that to them, a lot of my clients right now are women that are building businesses or building some sort of, they've kind of had their children and now they feel called to share another message. They feel like me, I've always wanted to speak. And then it was like, why not start now? And when I was focused on all the negatives, I was like, I've missed my chance. I'm too old. I'm behind. But when I switched it and was like, how do I do this? The opportunities have come. So that's kind of who I focus on. I do love to talk to youth groups as well, just because they're still kind of open-minded to the power of words, right? And so anytime I can share with them, but I think that any business is always when you have the power of words working for you, you get more productivity and you accomplish more. So I think that, like I say, I kind of tweak the message to who it is, but my main focus is just that woman that's sitting there going, I really have more to offer, but then she focuses on the buts and she just never says and to herself. So
I love it. I love it. Well, in just a minute, if you feel drawn to work with Becky or have questions and want to reach out to her, in just a minute, I'm going to have her share some information with you about how you can learn more. But Becky, before we go, it is the holiday season and we are getting ready to have all kinds of parties, neighborhood parties, work parties, and everything else. And I think sometimes our mind can run away with us right before we head out, whether we're feeling self-conscious or whether we're feeling like we don't belong or whether we're feeling like, oh, I don't know anybody who's going to be there. Do you have a pep talk that you can give our audience to put on the right words before they walk into a door that may make them feel a little bit awkward or uncomfortable?
Yeah, I do, because I have to use it myself. I will share what I do oftentimes. So there's a phrase that I really love, and it's, I accept myself unconditionally right now. And I oftentimes say this to myself many times throughout the day, but when we learn to accept ourselves, who we are as a unique individual, then we let go of the compare and despair game that many of us fall into. Now, I started saying this to myself probably 5 years ago. I accept myself unconditionally right now. And what I love about words is you can start saying them to yourself, even if you don't believe them yet, right? You don't have to believe it. You start saying it and there's a power and an energy that will go through you that helps you be more intentional. So I would just invite people, if you feel anxiety or worried when you're going into a situation, to find a phrase that recenters you to remember who you are as an individual, that you don't need to show up and be anyone else. And if you don't have a phrase, use the one I just offered. I accept myself unconditionally right now. But you might have a phrase and know that those little phrases, what they do are they redirect your mind to look to the positive, to look to the good. There is a statistic out there, Michelle, that says that it's from the National Science Foundation that said that the average human being has between 18 to 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts, right? A lot of them are subconscious thoughts. And 80% of those thoughts are negative, and 95% of those thoughts are thoughts that we had the day before. And so what I like to offer people is, yes, we are going to have negative thoughts. We're going to think negative even about ourselves sometimes, but we can redirect. We can redirect. And even if we're starting to feel the anxiety of a social gathering and we're going, we can go, okay, but I accept myself unconditionally right now. Like I am a unique individual right now. And that helps me walk through to keep showing up and being an and person instead of sitting on the sidelines. I believe that everybody wants to live their most beautiful life, but many of us have been just sitting on the sidelines watching others live their life. And so I just say, it's your time to live your most beautiful life. Step forward, start practicing putting on words that matter to you. And as you begin to look for words, you'll find other words that mean something to you. And you practice putting them on, saying them to yourself, thinking them when you start feeling off or anxious or overwhelmed. So that's what I would offer.
I think that's great. And that phrase or creating a phrase of your own works in almost every circumstance. Like forget the holiday parties, like when you're walking into a meeting or when you're going into a conversation with a teenager or when you're having a conversation with friends or going to lunch with friends. All of that can just be a really great idea to remind yourself, hey, what are you putting on before you walk in? So that regardless of what is said or the conversation and where it goes, like you're good with you and you can show up confidently and have good conversations from that space. I love that. Okay, Becky, tell us, how can we learn more about you? What's your next big thing?
Okay, well, I do have a podcast called The Word Effect where I just share every week on it. And I share simple ideas and concepts of how to put on words. And so that's an easy way to just have reminders. I believe the power of words is something that we have to be consistent at. So it's just the consistent reminders. Like you said, in any situation, we can practice putting on the words that we need. You can go to my website at becomingwithbecky.com. And there you'll see that I have a membership site called Made for Joy. So it's a fun membership where people can actually get a physical reminder every month of a phrase or some words that they can physically put on, because I'm going to send them an exclusive t-shirt with that phrase that we're talking about. And then there's 2 times each month where one, there's a masterclass where I teach how to put those words in your life. And then another time where you can get on for some open coaching where I can support and give you tools to keep redirecting your brain. Because again, sometimes people ask me if I just am happy all the time. And the truth is I'm not. I am a human and life happens to me. I have teenagers. I have a husband. I have challenges in the world just like everyone else, but we can redirect. And so the Made for Joy, you can go to becomingwithbecky.com and right at the top, you'll see how to find out more information for Made for Joy. And then for those that want to work with me one-on-one, I have just individual 6-month packages where we deep dive into what you're trying to create. We discover what your result is, and then we work to get you that result based on our thoughts. It's not that you have to necessarily do more. You've got to just change how you look at the world and become intentional to it. So
awesome. Well, we will make sure all of those links are in the show notes below so that you can reach out to Becky. Also, make sure you follow her on your favorite social media channel. Becky, thank you for being on Make It Happen.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. It was a pleasure.
Hello and welcome to Pick My Brain. I asked Becky before she left if she had a question she'd like me to answer for this segment. And she said, I want to know what words you put on, Michelle. And so I'm going to share with you a few of my favorite words and phrases. And some of them will not surprise you. Like my favorite phrase absolutely 100%, no matter what, is always make it happen. And that phrase has driven me for a long time, many decades even. In fact, we're going on to 3 decades from the first time I heard it as a teenager. And anytime I feel a little bit of doubt or worry, I'm like, Michelle, you can do it, make it happen. And that mentality, enforced also by my dear friend and mentor, Elaine Millett, and my mom, who has said it over the years, has just kept me in a good, positive space. Also, not only encourages me and empowers me to take action, but it reminds me that I'm in 100% control of my actions and the things that I do. And I may not be able to control all of my circumstances, but I can certainly control what I do and how I respond to all of those. Another one that I'll say, and I've had people reach out to me before and say, Michelle, make it happen's not enough. It's not getting me out of bed. It's not getting me doing things. Make it happen is not moving me forward. And I've certainly had some of those moments too. In fact, some of the last couple of years have been really tricky. We joked a little bit with Becky about the speaking industry being a little bit dry over the last couple of years. And I remember at the beginning of 2021 thinking, I don't even know, because I can't have any speaking goals right now. That's not going to work. People aren't having events in the same way that they were before. And so instead of thinking about make it happen, I chose the phrase next right thing. And that word, that phrase, I have said, and I've kept it for a few years, like next right thing, next right thing. What is the next right thing I can do? And that gets me focusing on the things that I can control and pushing aside the things that I can't. I'm a big fan of looking at your circumstances and saying, hey, this might be a list of things I can't do anything about, but here's what I can do things about. And it also took me from being a really big picture thinker, which is what I do. I love to set big, hairy, audacious goals. But next right thing got me focused on just doing what was next and what was the most important, and kept me in priority in a world that felt very, very tumultuous. So I love this question, Becky. Thank you so much for sending it in. I would love to hear some of your favorite words. Feel free to leave them in the comments. We'll also have a section on Speak Michelle where you can leave your favorite words that keep you motivated and going so that you can take action and make it happen. Well, today's episode was packed with mindset principles and thoughts that can help you, whether you are raising a family, growing a business, or just accomplishing some of your favorite goals and dreams. I hope that as you are finishing out this year and starting a new one, or wherever you're watching this, that you're taking an opportunity to evaluate the words that you're saying to yourself and others and finding ways that you can swap them out for words that will give you a positive effect. Thank you for being part of Make It Happen. I would love for you to leave a rating and review. I would love for others to find this show if it will meet and serve their needs, and you can be helpful in that as you do that. I read every single one. I'm honored and I'm grateful. Thank you for being part of Make It Happen. We're getting ready to celebrate 10 years in podcasting, and that is not something that I take for granted, and I'm grateful for every single minute that you have watched or listened and been part of this journey. Thank you for being part of Make It Happen.